There we go. All right, cool. So, greetings and salutations. I have a little bit of time before my personal friends for Saturday get together. We normally play on Mondays, but I have this weird rotational schedule thing, so I have a few minutes to kill before we play at 9:30. So, we are going to make a basic fantasy role playing game character. We're actually going to make a few of them. Of course, we're going to be fitting them on these index cards. I have a few extras for spells and stuff like that. So we are going to, the permanent marker or the pen is going to be merely for stats. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, constitution, and charisma. So, as always, we're going to roll our dice. I only have 2 d6s, but that's okay. Okay, 8 and 12 for the strength. We're going to do pencil for the actual numbers because I've had a history where I have had characters 8 and 10 find some kind of magic fountain that one drink would improve their stats in one particular attribute, but drinking a second time would be fatal. So that was the intelligence. So now we're doing wisdom. That's a 3 and that's a 6. So average strength, average intelligence, not very wise, pretty foolish man, whoever this person is. 10 and 12 for the dexterity. Constitution. 3. This is a bad stat to roll low on. 9, and that saved it. So average constitution. Let's see about charisma. 7, 9. So pretty middling stats, with the exception of wisdom, which is terrible. He gets a -1 on his wisdom. And so that's one character. We're going to start off with making 4, just because we can. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma. We'll make a couple at a time. That way we can feel out how these guys are going to be. So for strength, we're going to have 7, 12. For intelligence, we're going to have 7, 12. For wisdom, we're going to have 10. Where'd it go? There it is, 15 for wisdom. Dexterity, we're going to have 7, 10. 10 on dexterity. Constitution, 8 and 11. Charisma, 9 and 13. So we have these 2 characters already made. Here's what their stats look like with 3d6 down the line. So character 1, average stats with the exception of of wisdom, which is a 6, which is a -1 penalty. And player 2, average stats with the exception of wisdom and charisma, which both get a +1. So one I think is going to be a human fighter. The other one is going to be a cleric. I am undecided what race I'm going to make them. So we have pretty much anybody can be a cleric. So we're going to take a D4. Actually, let's take a D8 so that everybody has a 2 and 8 chance. Because 4s are not as random as I would like them to be. And I'm going to make it this way. 1 and 2 is dwarf. 3 and 4 is elf. 5 and 6 is halfling. And 7 and 8 is human. So that'd be very interesting if we got a halfling out of this. We got a dwarf. So, and this guy's pretty average. So I'm going to call, so he's going to be a human fighter. We are going to call him Renault Varen, which is a character from a book I made once upon a time, a story I made. Now this next part, what? So this is going to be a dwarf. So we're going to call him Hranoven. That's with an H. Hranoven. Stonefeller. Something stereotypical, classical. Okay. So, Renault is a human. He's a fighter 1. Hranoven is a dwarf. He's a cleric 1, which means he doesn't get his spells yet. So, we would like to put our experience tables in there. So in case you didn't know, the easiest way to do this, leave your experience point blank, but over at the side, put a parentheses for what it takes to get them up to the next level. For Renault, it will be 2,000 experience points. And for Hranoven, it will be 1,500. It's the second best after Thief. Now, we're going to take our pen again. We're going to write down the following. HP, AC, we're just labeling categories. We're not doing any temporary numbers yet. Initiative, which for both characters will be nothing because they don't have dexterity bonuses. Movement and attack bonus. And we're just labeling them again because these numbers are going to change through level up. So here's the interesting part. Do we want to roll for our HP? And my answer to that is going to be yes. We're going to roll for our HP at level 1. So we're going to take both their hit dice. 2 and a 1. They ain't going to last long. All right. So Hranoven rolls a whopping 1. And Renault rolls a whopping 2. Be a good idea to give them some heavier armor to make up for that. Initiative for now is 0. And both get +1 attack bonus at level 1. Up next, we are going to put in our money. Well, you know what? Let's go over further to the side. Put down our saves. So we're going to have Death Ray and Poison. We're going to have Magic Wands. We're going to have Petrification / Paralysis. We're going to have Dragon Breath. We're going to have spells. So, again, here's what the template looks like so far. So we are going to go to the section in the book, of course, where their saves are going to be at. Now, Hrenovan will be an interesting thing because as a dwarf, he will get +4 to his saves with the exception of Dragon Breath, which will be a +3. And of course, Renault gets nothing. No bonuses. So, all we merely do is turn back to page 53. So for the cleric, Hrenovan, let's pull up his, since his comes first on the sheet. It is an 11, which will make it a 7 on the Poison Death Ray. 12, so that'll be an 8. Petrification Paralysis, that's a 14, so that'll be a 10. Dragon Breath is a 3, so 16 will be 13. And spells, 15, so we will have 11. So, which is the plus side of playing a dwarf. Fighter, 12, 13, 14. $15, $17. Let's do some money. So what I like to do is I like to divide everything up. Hello, amigo. I figured I'd drop in and say hi. Hello, Steve. How are you? I'm just doing a know-nothing video today. So we'll put gold pieces first because that's going to be the one that they look at the most. We'll put platinum at the end. Silver pieces. Copper pieces. And then we'll go electrum. And then platinum. Because electrum is pretty rare. Not too awful rare. But platinum is super rare. I'm good, bud. About to cook some dinner. Yeah, we just got done eating ourselves, and I'm just doing a little video until my Monday, was supposed to be my Monday night group plays tonight. We're doing it because I've got this stupid new schedule from work. So gold pieces, again, most common that they're going to use, most common they're going to look at anyway. Silver pieces, copper pieces. So those are the 3 most common. Electrum, which I do use in my games, and platinum at the end. So I like to arrange everything to what they're most likely going to look at on their sheets, and then arrange it until the least likely that they're going to see arrives. And platinum, of course, is the most rare. So in case you're wondering, here's what the template looks like so far. So for gold, we're going to roll 3d6 multiplied by 10. So for Renault, we have 4 and 7. So he is 70 gold. For Hanoven, we have 11, 17. So 170. Hanoven came out on top, which is great because he's the one that's going to be using the most gold, considering what his class is and relies on. So we'll put them aside because we can always do spells and extra things on the back. We have plenty of room for that. Plus, we could always put Hanoven's Turn Undead stuff. We're going to do 2 more characters, blank sheets. So, starting again. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, constitution, charisma. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, constitution, charisma. So we're going to have 2 more people join the party. So for this one, strength is going to be 11. Intelligence is going to be 16. We found our magic user. Wisdom 11. Dexterity, which is important for magic users, 14. Because, in case you didn't know, I'm a big believer in magic users having throwing daggers. Constitution. Snake eyes. 4. Not going to be a good time for the magic user. And charisma. 11. I thought he was going to end up being. So, he is probably the more frail than a typical magic user would be. So, with that, he has a +1 to his intelligence. He has a +1 to his charisma, to his dexterity, which is good because that not only affects throwing daggers but also his armor class and his initiative. And a -2 to his constitution score. So he's going to be abnormally frail, even for a magic user. Next one. Strength 9. Intelligence 11. Wisdom 9. Dexterity 5. So not exactly going to be very dexterous on that one. So we have a very frail magic user so far, and I think we've knocked out the possibility of a thief. 10, 13 for constitution. We might have a backup. We might have a backup for a cleric. Seems like especially since Crown Stonefeller is sitting at 1 HP. So let's see here. Yeah. Okay, and finally Charisma. 12. So, alrighty, with that, Constitution gives him a +1, but he's got a bad dexterity, which does affect not only initiative but also his armor class. So, uh, that is a -2 on dexterity. So, with that in mind, who's joining? Hold on here. Alrighty, I'm back. So we have. Okay, so what's the possibilities here? Now, this guy can either. So the magic user can either be an elf or a human. So we are going to take a d6 and we're going to see which we come up with. So, especially because Constitution is definitely not going to be very. Definitely not going to come into play or be a problem with the race restrictions. So we're going to say 1 through 3 is human, 4 through 6 is going to be elf. What do we get? It is indeed an elf. So we are going to call this guy uh, Togelis. Togelis. Stereotypical, as always, Silverleaf. That's good enough to me. So we have Togelis Silverleaf. And we are going to have, based off of what we see here, we have ourselves another potential cleric. I would actually encourage somebody with stats like this to be a cleric, because it's a nice middle ground between fighter and magic user, as the class has always been. People think of clerics only as healers in more modern editions when they are, quite frankly, more than just that. I blame the modern mechanics for stuffing them with that responsibility. So, all right, what do we have here? We can obviously have another dwarf or another human. We definitely don't have a halfling because a halfling requires at least 9 dexterity. So, all right, one through. We could also have an elf. So I'll tell you what, 1 through 2 is human. 3 to 4 is dwarf. 5 through 6 is elf. It is indeed a human. So what are we going to name this guy? We will call him Tyridius. We'll call him Johnson, but we'll spell it differently. Jonsen. Johnson. So with this one, so we have elf, magic user 1, and we have human cleric 1. XP, we leave blank. XP, we leave blank, but over at the side, we will put our required experience for level up in parentheses. And in case you were wondering, yes, I do count gold towards experience in my games. But for the cases of humans, I only apply the bonus to monster experience. I don't do it for gold experience. I feel like that keeps quite a bit of the challenge alive, and it also seems to keep the party within, like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of asymmetrical leveling, but it also keeps everybody from being too far ahead of somebody else. Obviously, if you stuck a human in the party, everybody will want to be humans. And don't get me wrong, I like to run human centric campaigns, but I do like my humans. Um, I do like my players to have a choice. This is why I abandoned what my original plans for Anglovan was. So that's why I'm keeping uh, the basic fantasy rules for the campaign. So, anyways, let's take a look. So Tyridius, of course, will get 1,500 experience points. Let me go back to my experience tables. So 1,500 for Tyridius to level up to 2. And for the case of Tegalus, who of course is the frailest, unfortunately, he also has been saddled with being an elf, which means he does not get a 10% experience bonus, which means that he is the frailest and will level the slowest. And so he will have 2,500, I believe. Yes, 2,500. We could have also made him a multi-class, that a combination class of magic user fighter. We could have also done that with magic user thief, but peace out, man. Got to run. See you, Steve. I'm going to try to have this up later, anyways. I have my Satanic Panic video that I still haven't released yet because I'm waiting for it to process. I did that briefly last night. It's not as good as I thought it would be, but whatever. I talked about it for a bit, and I got to talk about my beliefs for a bit. So, anyways, now that we have that, we are going to go back over here, and we are going to have label down HP, AC, initiative, movement, and attack bonus. HP, AC, initiative. Oh man, missed the start of this. Hey bro. Hey, what's up? I'm just killing a little time before my Monday night group, plays here in a little bit. We're playing on Sunday because I'm on this weird rotating schedule at work now. So we couldn't do it last night, but tonight seemed like the best night for everybody. So we're going to do that. And my Thursday night group is going to actually be playing Thursday this upcoming week. So in case you were wondering, Ray, here's 2 characters I've got already made up. We haven't gave gear yet, but we're going to fit the characters on the index card because we've always heard about how guys back in the day used to, like, you didn't even need a full sheet of paper. So, right. So we're going to try again for Thief in a little while. Let me check and consult the time. Okay, I have about roughly another hour and 15 minutes before I have to get off, so I'm fine. So, with that, for anybody that joins us, here's the party we have so far. We have Renault Varen, a human fighter, with a whopping 2 HP at level 1. And we have Renovan Stonefeller, Dwarf Cleric, with a whopping 1 HP at level 1. So we have just created Tegalus Silverleaf, Elven Magic User, and Tyridius Johnson, Human Cleric. So now we are going to start rolling for our HP. So in the case of Tegalus Silverleaf, with his terrible, terrible Constitution penalty of -2, he rolled a 4. 3 minus 2 equals 1. So he does get 1 HP at level 1. I figured he would. The best he could hope for was a 2. And of course, I didn't think that was going to happen. And for Tyridius Johnson, a 5 with a Constitution modifier of +1, he is sitting at a nice, comfortable 6 hit points. Which, in my opinion, at level 1, when most things can one-shot you to begin with, I wouldn't worry too much. These are, yep, I used one sheet of paper only so that I could really overflesh it out. My magic users always had a huge amount of embellishments because they drop like flies. Exactly. So this all comes back to why the adventure is the backstory too. So we'll leave the attack. We'll leave the AC alone, in addition to the um, initiative. Oh, with the exception of Tagelis, who has a +1 dexterity, which means his initiative will have a +1 bonus, and his armor class, of course, will also get a +1 bonus here in a little while. He's not going to be proficient in any kind of armor, so in basic fantasy, not having armor is an armor class of 11, which bumps him up to a 12 because he has a he came out really good, I would say, in terms of the stats he needed for combat. With the addition, he's going to know an additional language, an intelligence score of 16, so that's a +1. And with a dexterity score of 14, that's a +1. In addition to having faster initiative and being able to have a little bit of an armor class bonus. He can also use throwing daggers. I'm a big proponent and tell people all the time to use throwing daggers if they are going to be a magic user. This is because I don't believe in using cantrips in my games. It to me it cheapens the effect of when you get an actual spell. Now that we got that done, we are going to write down our trusty save table templates over at the side. So of course, going in order, death ray poison, wands, petrification / paralysis, dragon breath, and spells. Coming over to the side again here, DR PSN, wands, pet par, DB, and spells. So now we go back to page 53 in the basic fantasy rulebook. So, in the case of Tyridius Johnson, who is a human and therefore will receive no bonuses, 11, 12, 14, 16, 15. 11, 12, 14, 16, 15. In the case of Tagelis Silverleaf, now, of course, he is an elf and therefore gets a little bit of a bonus. Not much. In the case of paralysis and petrification, he gets a +1, and then he gets +2 to magic wands and spells. So let's go back to page 3. 53, I mean. So, okay. 13. 14, which becomes a 12. 13, which also becomes a 12. 16. And 15, which becomes a 13. Which, to any people who might be newer to OSR games, the whole point of playing, especially if you're going to be playing basic fantasy RPG where they do separate race and class, but they do have class restrictions based upon race. The point is to choosing these non-human races. In the case of dwarves and elves, they both get dark vision, but each class kind of has their own little funny thing about it. In fact, like for example, thief class, the halfling is the best, bar none, because of how good they are at hiding. So, but it's completely doable with other classes such as human, elf, and dwarf. Uh, with that being said, um, it depends on the setting, and therefore, within our particular circles, the game master slash referee slash dungeon master, whatever name you want to call it, they get fiat, and so they, if they want to run a human centric campaign, now if they're like me, they like to give the players a little bit of choice, but I like to restrict it to the core classes most of the time. There's a couple groups where I don't do that, and they get to play essentially whatever they want, whatever they can find on Basic Fantasy's website. But for specifically for the Anglovan campaign I'm going to have coming up, it's only going to be the four classes and the four races from the rulebook, and therefore each race has its own thing. So this whole bioessentialism thing, you might as well throw that out. Number one, that it's bullcrap. Okay, because you can't be bioessentialist towards a race that doesn't exist. Number two, why? Okay, why in the world would you want to play a race that is going to probably be discriminated against? That's right, exactly. So why in the world would you want to play a class that's going to be discriminated against in a campaign setting aside from role playing purposes? Like what if you have abilities attached to it that gives you a little bit more of an option? Like, boy howdy, that merchant sure was a jerk to me, but at least I have dark vision. And by the way, I never will allow tieflings at the table. Okay, now that I'm off my soapbox, so here's what the sheets look like right now. So of course, just like with Cranovan and Renault, our next thing is going to be money. And so again, you can arrange the money however you wish on your sheet, but what I like to do still is with the most common or the one that the characters are going to look at the most. So I'll start with gold pieces, then I move on to silver pieces, copper pieces, electrum because it's not rare, but you're going to run into it, but they're going to be the least likely to use it. And of course, platinum pieces, which are so rare that you'll go several sessions. In fact, like my Thursday night group has never encountered a piece of platinum. So I put platinum last. So, and then we'll repeat that over here for Togelis, gold, silver, copper, electrum, and platinum. Now, I don't know about you folks living outside the U.S., but if you are an American player and you are familiar with the U.S. currency, think of everything in the dollar amount. That's the simplest way. Like for example, one gold piece equals a dollar. Uh, 10 dimes. Think of the silver piece as a dime. 10 dimes um, make a gold piece. Copper is like pennies. 10 of them make a dime. Electrum is like a half dollar, so 50 cents, I believe. Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure it's like the half dollar. The electrum piece is like the half dollar, and of course platinum is like a $5 bill. Platinum's like a $5 bill. That's the easiest way to know. So anyway, let's find out how much these guys have. So for the case of Tyredius Johnson, 7, 9. So he starts out with 90 gold. He doesn't quite start off as good as Pranovan, which if you wasn't here for, starts out with 170, just 10 shy of the maximum amount you can get at level 1, starting out on character creation. For Tegelis Silverleaf, now he's settled with uh, being the most bare minimum class. Nice equating there. I never explained it like that, but that's good. Yeah, exactly. Like, now this, of course, has because I'm not familiar with European currency or Canadian currency or whatever. So this analogy really is limited to the U.S. dollar, and in my opinion, I think that's how it relates. I think that's how it related to Gygax, Moldvay, Cook, all those guys. That's how I think they related it to one. And of course, like I said, gold equates to experience points. And so now the question gets raised because I've had this asked in the campaign before. Starting gold at level 1, does that count towards my experience points? Now this comes with DM fiat. You can if you wish. because I would say when it takes, okay, let's take the thief class for example. The thief class needs 1,250 experience points to level up, right? What is 180 in that? It's just kind of a drop. It's still they're still going to need to run a session or two before they ever reach level 2. Um, that's up to you. Um, Personal opinion. So you use gold as XP then in BFRPG, exactly. Yes, but okay. So I've rolled it a couple different ways since I've started playing. Um, so no, number one, for those of you who don't know, it is an optional rule in the back. Some people, in my opinion, I think they misunderstand the rule. So at least how Chris Gunnerman wrote it. But that's the strength of it too, right? Because here's what I've said in the past: the vagaries in the rule wording plays to the strength because that leaves a lot up to interpretation of the GM. So you can make rulings based upon how you understand it, what works for your table, what works for your group. And since I think Ray's joining us pretty late, so he probably didn't hear me say this. In the case of gold with the humans experience bonus point, I do not count the experience point bonus towards gold. Only monster experience. So that, in my opinion, keeps everybody, because I'm a big fan of asymmetrical leveling too. I like that, but uh, it could quickly make things too far ahead. Like obviously, if you have the human thief, he's going to hit a super high level before everybody else. Now it kind of equals out. I would say probably around level 6 ish, maybe level 5. Like everybody's kind of starts to equal out a little bit more on the thresholds. But point being, human thief, and you are going to really quick if you have that experience bonus added to it. So my personal opinion and the way I rule it, I don't count the human bonus percentage, only towards monsters. So page 153 of the Basic Fantasy RPG rulebook. The game master may also assign experience points for treasure earned at a rate of 1 gold point equals 1 experience point. Yep, but adding bonus for XP to gold earned is really fair. Yeah, that's yeah, like that's the way I see it. Like because it's all about fairness and like because I like asymmetrical leveling, but uh, oops, not adding it. Uh, yeah, yeah, because like it really all depends on how you want this. Like if you want to encourage people to choose humans, then obviously add that bonus to the gold. But I mean, it all comes down to what you want at your table, how you feel about it, blah blah blah. So, page 153, the game master may also assign experience points for treasure gain at a rate of 1 gold point. A gold piece equals 1 experience point. This is optional. GMs wishing to advance their players to higher levels more quickly may choose to do this, while those preferring a more leisurely pace should omit it. If experience is awarded for treasure, it should be awarded only for treasure acquired and returned to a place of safety. Now, I've heard people misunderstand that rule. I've heard people think that this is an either or situation. It's not an either or situation the way I understand it. I think Rob's Games might rule it that way, but I'm not sure. Um, so think of it kind of like attaining a high score in an arcade game. So think about it like that. Like let's even take Super Mario, where like you get points for collecting coins and stuff like that. It's like that. So could you imagine what kind of stinking level Mario would be by now? By the way, been doing it for 40 years ish. Anyways, so that's the way I roll. You don't get the experience points while you're in the dungeon. You have to return to town. And as I've stated in the past, returning to town is 9 times out of 10 the signal of the end of the session. The session is usually wrapping up by this time. Not all the time. Like sometimes they forget something in town, they go back, so not all the time, obviously. But when the player characters start thinking we got a good haul, we're starting to run out of room in our bags. Let's go back to town. They go back to town. They store it in this area. They spend it. They can keep it on their persons, whatever they want to do with it. Um, and now, to continue this optional rule, by the way, alternately, the GM may require treasure to be spent on training in order to count it for experience. This is a highly effective way to remove excess treasure from the campaign. Um, he being Mortal Box said for Bake Me, for sure, yeah. So that's this all comes down to, I think many people in the OSR, and I forgot to roll for Techolas, who gets 70 gold pieces, which is not bad for him. He really only needs a spell book, some few odds and ends, and some daggers and a staff. But so, anyways, um, so there's four characters. I've got four more cards we might do something with, but I know that balance is kind of a dirty word in our hobby right now. A lot of people think that you need to only use random tables, and I would counter say that's not always the case. Don't get me wrong, I don't like to balance things too much. I think that they should, like, obviously, if a dragon falls out of the sky, well, number one, I'd roll the reaction roll. Let's a dragon roll out of the sky. 12. Okay, the best thing that could happen. So, what is the best thing that could happen to me? So, like, obviously, reaction rolls would say that this is friendly. This is going to be a friendly dragon. Now you got something to play with. But easily, that dragon could have. Now, at the average, I would say somewhere in the average, the dragon either takes notice or doesn't take notice and flies off. Like, I would always narrate this thing to be in the sky, because why would a dragon be walking around on the ground? So obviously, game balance is kind of a dirty word in ways, because I do like to use wandering monster encounters and wilderness encounters and blah 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 too. But sometimes when you're working with a theme, like, it makes it like my Mansion of the Forsaken Necromancer. That was a very popular dungeon with my first playgroup. Um, I worked with a theme, undead, very basic. The group went to go investigate this case of a kidnapped acolyte from the local chapel. They found his body, which they determined was not dead, but it was almost like a shell. They figured out that his soul was trapped by this necromancer, and they fought this necromancer, who is, basic fantasy calls them zombrares and skeletars, these undead wizards. And so, like, in my particular instance, this guy was on his way to becoming a lich. He's been dead for centuries, and he's on his way to becoming a lich. So they essentially destroyed his proto phylactery. Like, they found it out. It was super easy. Like, I honestly probably made this too easy of a place. But it achieved the effect I wanted it to have. That was to keep them, number one, keep them on their toes. Number two, to actually, like, build up this atmosphere, like there was disembodied singing coming from the house. It was almost like the house itself was alive. Of course, it wasn't, but it was full of, like, these cursed spirits. Uh, Most of the balancing occurred during dungeon levels back in the day, and that's about it. Largely, the world is dangerous out there, and you stepped into it. Exactly. So, like, I don't. So, like, wilderness encounters, whatever you get is whatever you get. Now, in mega dungeons, I would say, yeah, random rolls, random roll it all day. The mega dungeon is a weird place, and that's honestly the design for it. When it comes to like having a planned dungeon, wanting to work with a theme, like, you place whatever items you want in there. Like, by the time, like, for example, the Mansion of the Forsaken Necromancer, by the time that was done, the the assassin had a nifty little cloak to wear that would hide him all the time. So it's actually pretty cool. Um, I would say, before I get off, because I will make a part two to this, because we've only just started making these characters, right? So what time is it here? It's 8:35. So I do need to do a little prep, not a lot, but let I'm going to show you guys a little bit of my book that I've got going on here. So let me just reverse. It's going to be a little weird. Reverse. There we go. Okay. So, in case you were wondering, now I normally have the rule book close by, but sometimes I don't like to have it opened up to the charts and stuff. So, what I did was I took the charts and tables from Basic Fantasy RPG's site, and you can find these, by the way, and using the game master screen stuff inserts works too. Like you literally have almost every chart you could possibly have from the game. So obviously you have your level up charts. You have everything for character creation. Uh, Talks about sneak attacks. Here's the clerics undead table, which is nice. Spell tables and all that. So um, you have your attack bonus table. Like it's just nifty to have laying close by. Treasure generation, gems and jewelry, value adjustments, and of course you got like your magic weapons, all your stuff for wandering monsters and whatnot. Dice roll statistics. Now this is very helpful to have, especially if you want to generate. Now I still roll for HP, but if you're wondering how you should do it, like based upon averages, that's not a bad idea either. Of course, I have the alignment. Now, alignment is kind of finicky. So I've got the 9 alignments here. I think they're nice to have. There's nearly exactly what I did. We have one for the players and one for me. Very handy. Exactly. Like having stuff to pass out is very nice. And unfortunately, most of my groups are out of state. So the easiest way to do that is to tell them what to download so that they have it. And I would encourage them to do it now, since the possibility of this stuff coming off of the site for a while Chris Gonnerman gets his whole share-alike stuff figured out, would be a very good idea. Somebody asked about here's the alignments for all the core monsters, by the way, in case you were wondering. Orcs specifically where they ought to be. But anyways, I'll go through this here in a second. But anyways, I encourage people to download what they can off the website now, since you don't know what's going to be available soon enough. This is from knightsinthenorth.com dungeon map generator, and it's very basic. Like it all operates off of like 30-foot rooms and stuff like that. Nice. Don't have that alignment sheet. Cool. Exactly. I'm a little bit about alignment, but it kind of it helps. It does help. I believe that it all depends at what like the deity of the player is going to be, right? Like if you have like a Judeo-Christian kind of setting, like a lot of RPGs are faced around, then obviously you'll have something like a lawful good be like according to a holy script or something like that. It gives a baseline to start from. Exactly. Neutral, like true neutral is a little bit more like you could play around with it a bit. Like undecidedly, this one, this page right here. I never did point this page out. 100 items for problem solving. Now this is not specific to any. This is system agnostic, just like this is. So like this has items that may or may not be in your game, and this is just something I have in here for ideas. Right, so like, you got like a bag of bladders, which can be inflated like balloons and used as floats at a kindle to turn them into crude hot air balloons. So like, yeah, bag of flash powder, which you would, when lit, emits a blinding flash of light. Which there is a blinding flash light trap in my dungeons a lot of times. What's up, honey?
Are you recording or?
Yeah, I'm recording. I'm live right now.
I'm gonna order a 3-pack of crumble cookie and have Mom bring it home tomorrow because I'm coming home.
Okay. Okay. So, anyways, so these different like little ideas that you can play with, right? So, like, okay, now here's the project I'm working on. Here's what I've got so far. So, Anglovan basic fantasy role playing game campaign setting, and you're probably thinking that font's very big. Well, yeah, like it's sometimes hard to see. Like, let me finish with something. Hold on. Like, this is honestly too like this is comfortable, but it's too small. For example, but where everything's spaced out, like it's easier to read. Hey, if you get a chance at some point, throw up those other sheets as links that you're showing us if you'd like. Absolutely, I could do that. Absolutely, I would. Um, so like these little footnotes and stuff like that, like it might be a little bit hard to read sometimes, but like because I mean everybody's eyes get a little bit bad after a while, so I had to get something with a little bit of a larger font size. Uh-oh, my ribbon got caught in the zip. All right. Anyways, so let's go back to this project, and I'll run down the rules real quick. So, like, the premise, very basic. Campaign setting that relies on sandbox adventures and random tables. A campaign setting for early level characters that stresses wilderness and dungeon exploration. Human centric world set in a parish ran by high ranking clerics and priests. Rare magic items and rare magic in general, making magic truly fantastic and awesome when it occurs. You just showed us a Bible. That's cool, dude. Yeah. By the way, in case you didn't know, I'm a Sunday school teacher. I know I can talk a little rough every now and then, and that's something I am working on. But yeah, I'm a Sunday school teacher. So, uh, warring orc and goblin tribes, where alliance with one faction may have consequences with the other and with another. And I took inspiration from that from uh, Caves of Chaos in B2. Super cool. Yeah, exactly, man. We didn't have church today because sickness, so like everybody was sick and there wasn't enough people to really unlock the doors for small country church. So therefore, it's a little bit rough to pay the bills sometimes over there. But I took this idea from Caves of Chaos from B2, where like you had these factions of different monsters. A mega dungeon that has lore that may or may not explain the origins of monsters and chaos. May or may not. It's up for the GM to decide, because even I haven't decided yet. The presence of ruins linked to a long dead race that may or may not explain the origins of magic. Rules and restrictions for character creation. All stats will be rolled with 3d6 in order: strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma. Only the 4 races and classes and 2 combination classes for elves in the basic fantasy role-playing game rulebook are available for play. The highest possible hit points possible for I just noticed I had a redundancy there for player characters will be used at level 1. All preceding levels will be rolling for hit points. Game Master will roll for the gold available to each player character. Dual wielding is available for medium and small. This is where we get into my personal house rules. Dual wielding is available for medium and small size weapons. Halflings and dwarves are restricted to small size weapons. There will be an attack bonus penalty of -2 based off of a dexterity bonus of 0. Calling defense will be in action. Guarding oneself will be an AC bonus of +4 with shields. Guarding an adjacent character will provide AC +2 to both characters with a shield. I'm a corporate chaplain that gets to share the gospel by permission each day, in addition to giving counsel and building relationships. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. I used to witness Jehovah's Witnesses all the time. In fact, I'm actually kind of whitelisted. I talk a bit about that in my Satanic Panic video, which I'll should be almost done to be processing. So hopefully we'll have that up soon for everybody to view after the fact. A hit will be half damage if the PC is using reflexes such as the thief or magic user, it will be a save versus death ray plus dexterity bonus / penalty. And pound it right back to you, good sir. Passing is a miss, and failing is half damage. The rolls and AC only apply if the player has called for a defensive action. There was a lot of people that were trying to use the Glane campaign and Rose Lawyer around to the point where I made more specific rules on that. So, shield bashing. This came up the other night. Will be available as a reaction when an attacker misses a defending character. It gains no attack bonus, relying on strength, doing 1d3 damage. Gold will be used as experience points. It will not be subject to the human's 10% XP bonus. So there's my house rule again. 0 hit points will trigger a death save on the player's next turn based on save versus death ray / poison. You have 1 save per day. So I think that's a fair thing to have. I don't ever fault anybody for wanting to use death saves. It can be pretty crappy when everybody's rolling up new characters all the time. So it's fine. If you don't want to use it, that's up to you. I use it if you really wanted to know. Here's a copy of the map that I'm going to pass out to players. It's based off of those classical old medieval maps where everything is like not proportionate and everything like that. It just gives you a general idea of what's going around. I'm a terrible artist. My wife is definitely more the artistic kind. But, Galdeth, which is where they're going to spend most of their time. Hill Spirits, Korred, Farad, Forgotten Castle Halthen, Tomb of the Forlorn, which will be the mega dungeon, Ruins of Arca, Temple of Blight, and the Tower of Anthen. And of course, and stuck in K-Ral and the parish of Anglovan. This is the more proportionate map I'm working on. Was out of hex paper and didn't print none off. I got glare going on. Hold on. So you can kind of see what's going on a little bit more. Very basic, but it suits my needs, along with a little key I put at the bottom. This one I printed off because I made it on my computer. City of Galdeth, which is the main town, labeled everything. And then NPC lists with everybody's little kind of brief description of their attitudes, what kind of weapons they might have on them, their HP, armor class, stuff like that. I have children. They do not have hit points, so you cannot kill the children. Here is a callback to something. Nicodemus Theoron. That is my 5e character. When I first started playing the game, I play... Still to this day, Nicodemus Theoron, magic user extraordinaire. He is actually a level 8 evocation wizard, if you want to know. So, Arcanist extraordinaire, which is something that he says all the time. Nicodemus Theoron is a strange man, a plague survivor who looks much older than his 35 years would suggest. He, along with Birch, Ramai, and Brad, became heroes known as the Oaks, and that stands for the organization... the Organized Alliance of Knights for Shinies. In a distant land for slaying a dragon, unbeknownst to outsiders of their party, never did, as the dragon was slain by a vengeful Manticore, as the party was barely clinging to life. He will sell spells and different materials for magical study. He's the only magic user in the city, and he knows it, often being eccentric simply for entertaining himself. Birch, the character, is actually a homebrew class. He's literally squirrels in man suit. So, his little description. If Nicodemus is eccentric, Birch is from another world. A member of the Oaks, Birch is a mysterious masked figure that possesses uncanny abilities to part people with their money and vanish in almost plain sight. An accomplished and skillful thief, he is a shadow of death to those who only find out all too late that he is present. And, of course, since I didn't want to use 5e mechanics to explain how he just disappears and does this and that, I gave him Elven Cloak and Elven Boots. It goes on a little bit towards a little bit of lore when it comes to the Duke. Man, he unified humanity after capturing the Gall of Death Hill from the Orcs. Donathan is an effective and fair leader that encourages trade in the city. His wife Dorothy and children Travis and Carla lived comfortably and securely, and I noticed that is a past tense, and that's driving me nuts, but whatever. Um, Captain Jervis Xanth, Slayer of Thundertusk the Cruel. Jervis was promoted to captain by Duke Donathan and is his right hand. Then we have Prophet Velthan Xanth. Twin brother of Jervis, Velthan inspired the troops through his zealous devotion to Yolgren, enabling the destruction of the orcs of the Gall of Death Hill. So orcs are bad guys in this campaign. No, you cannot play as them. So here are the two other guys from our 5e campaign. Two more members of the Oaks. Ramon and Brad served as healers and guardians of the group. Both clerics. Their ways and beliefs are strange and foreign to the Church of Yolgren. Which a little bit about, like, there's nothing that specifically talks about Yolgren, but we do have like a chapel over here, the Chapel of St. Thomas Derry. Father Fabian is a kind-hearted elderly man. His gifts from Yolgren have been very situational, but they have found purposes among the more impoverished in the city. And then, of course, the statue of St. Johnson Anders. So that's basically what I've got right now. I think that's the last bit of my extra materials. But I will definitely put a link up in a post later on where to find these things I printed out, because I know y'all might be interested in them. So yeah, it is. So, like, a little bit of creativity goes a long way. I think that's one of the reasons why I like this game so much. Like, you have so much room to be creative with what you do, what you make up. Like, people homebrew stuff all the time, whether it's a world, whether it's a class, whether it's a magical item, whether it's a magical spell. So, like, because it's kind of one of those things where, like, people have asked about my opinion on homebrew, and I really don't know. I'm undecided because really, homebrewing your broken crap has been a pastime for this hobby since the 70s. So I can't fault people for wanting to homebrew stuff. So, but like obviously, like a lot of the times, even if you have like one broken thing, it can be dealt with. Specifically because the character can die at any time too. So, like, so I'm a little bit undecided. It all comes down to like, it all is situational, right? So, like, not every situation. There's like no real right answer in my opinion to that. Whether or not to allow homebrewed stuff or players to homebrew something, that like, there's no right answer. So that all comes down to what you want to do, how you want to run your games, what feel you have for your world. Obviously, you should always reserve the right to say no. Don't say that you don't, because I used to be this way too. Like I used to say I'm not, like, I'm very rarely going to no, and that is true. I very rarely have told people no. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to approve everything that comes to the table, and I don't want them to get that idea either. So it's just like a really good example is the player who plays Karfanek, the dwarf cleric. He didn't want to use the Church of Ta for his religion. He thought it was weird that a dwarf would follow a primarily human religion in Morgansfort, and that's totally fine. And so he came up with Sogor, the god of the mountain, for his particular character. And I was like, well, tell me a little bit about him, this, that, and everything else. And so, like, kind of like a neutral good god. So therefore, like, charity comes to mind. Like, charity, equity, the ability to like, healing would be a thing. Like, this is like more along the lines of, it's not about statutes and laws, it's about doing good to other people in a charitable way, and I get that. So it was kind of like a brief idea, and I'm like, hey, what is your holy symbol, by the way? And I've heard some crazy wild ideas. Of course, his was very, simplistic, but it works and it's effective. And it's effective because he don't ever have to put his shield down, because his shield is the holy symbol. So, like, it works. and gonna be a problem if he ever runs into a magical shield and decides to overlook it. But hey Rex, hey Ray, I missed the beginning, but I got great ideas from this stream. No hit points for children and others don't want to be killed. Love that idea. Exactly. Yes. I had this discussion with somebody who is a player in my play by post of Morgan's Fort, and he was talking about how his character, because he likes to play a lot of females, whatever floats your boat. He likes to play a lot of females, and his personal group he was playing because he's in college. One of the men in that group tried to rape his character, and then of course I asked what his response was, and he said I threatened to quit, and I said, "Here's where you went wrong. You should have." Because like as I poked and prod, the GM was almost essentially egging it on, like encouraging it. And I'm like, okay. I said I want to be very clear about what happens at my tables. Okay. Now, characters have the abilities to get married off and have kids and live the retirement life and whatever. But it's assumed that their days in an adventure are over. So therefore, this would be like at the tail end of their career. But it's possible for them to do. Sleeping with the wench. I've never had that situation come up. This would be treated as a fade to black thing, but most of my groups do not stress role playing very much. Role playing happens, but it doesn't go that route. You know what I mean? And so we keep things that might be uncomfortable off the table. And so no sexual encounters, no sexually explicit content. Definitely no rape. Because I said from the get go, I said, let it be known. I said, nobody's ever given me any problems in any of my groups. And they've never gave me any reason to have to make this a rule. But if I ever find out that somebody is trying to be a pervert at my table, they're gone. No questions asked. They won't be allowed. Two of my tables are men, and men are men. I don't think I have to explain that, but we're all married or mature men, even if we're not married, and I happen to be, and I have two children, and in my play by post, my wife is a player, and she's treated as equally as the other players, by the way, and so. That kind of crap would never be allowed, not a bit. And so you're introducing. Number one, I try not to introduce a situation where only one player is the focus of the role playing. Sometimes it happens, like the wizard wants to go talk to the magical guy in the village and try to get a spell or two or get a book, but the other guys want to stay behind at the tavern. That's totally fine. So like I'll do like a meanwhile cut to the chase kind of thing. Like this is done and over with within minutes. It's not like I'm not devoting an entire half hour to it. So like I cut to the chase pretty quickly. It works. Never got a complaint on it. So gives everybody a chance to, whether they want to be silly or whatever, they can do that. Get that out of their system. Add a little bit of levity to the situation. If they want to do that, and then we do what they want to do, and then we go to the dungeon because that's essentially what they want to do. They want to keep getting stuff. So, with that in mind, I guess I ought to get off here in a minute because it is now currently 9 o'clock, and my group starts in about 30 minutes. So, all right, guys. So now you guys have seen a little bit about the tools I use, and I will post those links. I promise I will. I will get around to them. I'll post them, and you kind of got to see how I created those characters a little bit. I'm going to try to, because the whole solo RPG thing is apparently a thing now, and I'm not against that. In fact, I think there's an untapped market for that. Like any good capitalist, I believe that should be capitalized on immediately. But obviously, like I'm to the point where like don't go WotC and charge $50 for a book that falls apart at the seams. So like, if you decide you want to charge money for it, like let's be real here. How much are you expecting to get? Like charge $5. Probably not even that. Yeah. charge just a little bit more than the at cost of print, and you can make a little bit of a profit. Like, because at the end of the day, how much are you going to lose out on? Not a lot, right? So, like, you should gain a little bit of gas money or something. I don't know. You know, might be able to buy a breakfast burrito from McDonald's or something. I don't know. Even those are getting expensive. But I hate McDonald's anyway, so it's not like I eat there all the time. But anyway, you guys got to take a little look see at my book. Like I said, in case you were wondering, it's available on Basic Fantasy RPG site right now. This is what I use. It's a nice little. It's just a nice little thing to have when you don't want to, like, because I'll have my book opened up here, like maybe looking at a monster or something, and like this keeps me from having to go back and see whether or not the thief found something, whether or not so and so did this or that or whatever. You know, it keeps me from having to turn. So, I want to thank Steve for joining us, even though he had a cutout. I want to thank Retro DM Ray for coming back here, and again, sub to his channel, guys. I'm sure most of the people who are watching me have already done that, but in case you're finding my video before his stuff, somehow, some way, check him out. And thanks Brad for joining us again. So it's all good. We I'm hoping this thing processes quick enough for me to post it later, so that after the fact, it's available for everybody. I think my Satanic Panic one from last night might be done processing. I did that a little bit late, so like not a lot of people got to interact with it. But like I bring up a few things and I like read a few articles and like I give my personal opinion about it, including I didn't do a complete read. I did a brief summary of Jack Chick's Dark Dungeons. I did get down to the part where Marcy self-levitates, we'll say. So I brush over that real quick. I don't make a joke about that. I just think it's very strange. Like, if you're real, like, I don't see the point in portraying something like that. You know what I mean? Aside from shock value, like there's no reason. So I think you guys know the panel I'm talking about, so I don't have to talk about it anymore. I also briefly discussed the IFB, which is the movement that Jack Chick was involved with, so that people kind of understood really where it was going from. Like this was a wackadoo group of people, and the sad part is like they allied with a lot of people that were also involved with the music stuff of the 1980s, right? So like we had to try, and I didn't touch on that too much, but like the whole Satanic Panic thing obviously wasn't just isolated Dungeons and Dragons. It also involved music. Like Ozzy Osbourne was a very prominent target during that time. Like Sabbath, Judas Priest, a lot of these rock musicians. I believe Michael Jackson might have been too. Venom was, but I would argue at that point Venom wasn't even relevant. They hadn't been relevant since the 70s at that point. Slayer, which is one of my favorite groups, believe it or not, still is. A lot of people are a little bit surprised when I tell them that, and it's really like, oh, it's like devil worship, this, that, and everything else. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's like, don't get me wrong, they're not Christians. The closest thing you get is Tom Araya is Catholic, and he's a lapsed one. Let's be honest. But at the end of the day, it's more about the attitude, doing your own thing, no matter how cool it is, no matter whether or not it will actually get you money. Here's the thing: if I had the production values that Matt Mercer had, and I put this and I did a whole thing of this, would this get the views that Matt Mercer get? Absolutely not. Why? Because Matt Mercer's style sells better than mine. Like he's got a prettier face, number one. Number two, he's an actor. He's got a bunch of voice actors with him, and like they do their thing. And I'm not a critter. I think that's obvious. But like in light of this whole WotC thing going on, I've said from the get-go that if Matt Mercer had the sense and the balls, he needs to break off from that, because here's the thing: Critical Role is bigger than Dungeons and Dragons. Critical Role is bigger than Dungeons and Dragons. I know people that buy stuff because it's Critical Role. Like there was an entire book based off of Critical Role material. people will buy stuff because Matt Mercer or Critical Role is attached to it. And so and here's the thing, Critical Role was not always Dungeons and Dragons. It started off as Pathfinder First Edition. So it can be done without Dungeons and Dragons. And if Matt Mercer is smart, he'll realize that. He'll detach himself from that, and he'll go on to have a continually good career, especially if the rumors of him making his own system are true. So, like, he put it out. Thanks, dude. Have a great game. Later, buddy. I'll look forward to that Panic vid soon. Mercer isn't really running anything other than production anyway. Am I honest? Yes. When people sit down and watch him, they're looking for entertainment. They're not looking for a game. They're looking for the drama. They're looking for an acting class. But that's a whole situation in and of itself, and I don't know if I want to get into this. But yeah, I got to get ready for my game here in a minute, since it starts in about 25 minutes. So, all right, guys. Again, thank you guys for joining us. I'll put this video out once it's done processing, and hopefully the Satanic Panic one will be out soon. Should be done by now. My next video, really, I don't know what to talk about. Something comes to me. So, see you guys. So, as always, take care. God bless. See you on the other side.
Dad.
What's up, honey?